Hi. Yeah, I started this already and got interrupted, and here I go. I'm going to start it all over again. So, I am reading from a book called Overshoot by William Catton, Catton. This book is very enlightening. So, here's the book. There's a lot of information, even just on the cover. Okay. This book has to do with how we are robbing from the future. Okay, I won't say too much more like I did last time. I'm just going to start reading. Our need for a new perspective. Competition across time. On the banks of the Volga in 1921, a refugee community was visited by an American newspaper correspondent who had come to write about the Russian famine. Almost half the people in the community were already dead of starvation. The death rate was rising. Those still surviving had no real prospect of prolonged longevity. In an adjacent field, a lone soldier was guarding a huge mound of sacks full of grain. The American newsman asked the white-bearded leader of the community why his people did not overpower his one guard, take over the grain, and relieve their hunger. The dignified old Russian explained that the sacks contained seed to be planted for the next growing season. We do not steal from the future, he said. Most important words ever. We do not steal from the future. So, today, mankind is locked into stealing ravenously from the future. That is what the book is about. It is not just a book about famine or hunger. Famine in the modern world must be read as one of several symptoms reflecting a deeper malady in the human condition, namely, diacramatic competition, a relationship whereby contemporary well-being is achieved at the expense of our descendants. By our sheer numbers, by the state of our technological development, and by being oblivious to the differences between a method that achieved lasting increments of human carrying capacity and one that achieves only temporary supplements, we have made satisfaction of today's human aspirations dependent upon massive deprivation for posterity. People of one generation have become indirect and unwitting antagonists of subsequent generations. Yet, diagnosis of our plight, even ecological analysis, have not made clear one essential point. A major aim of this book is to show that commonly proposed solutions, quote, solutions, for problems confronting mankind are actually going to aggravate those problems. Proposed remedies for various parts of our predicament need to be evaluated by asking whether they will intensify adversary relationship between people living today and people of the next generation and the next. The overlooked differences between methods that permanently enlarged human carrying capacity and more recent methods that have only enabled us temporarily to evade the world's limits can be seen if we contrast the way people used to seek the good life versus today's substitute expedient. In the mid, that word expedient or expediency is extremely important. In the mid-19th century, it was go west, young man, and grow up with the country, i.e., go where there is new land to take over and use such an increment of carrying capacity to prosper. At the start of America's third century, however, it was try to speed up the economy, i.e., try to draw down the finite reservoir of exhaustible resources a bit faster. So this is basically corresponding to, again, Pluto and Capricorn. You may say, boy, you cover that a lot. Yeah, I do, because this is our lived experience, and it is the overall umbrella that we are living under. There's many other issues, but the overall umbrella is overshoot. Overshoot. There's some key words in here. Drawdown, age of exuberance, and as I pick apart some of the other aspects to read, you might get an idea of how this relates to Pluto and Capricorn. Capricorn being management and organization of Earth's resources. Pluto in Capricorn, transformation of how that's done or die. And it's a little late in the game, a lot late really. But my thing is, it's important for people to understand exactly what we've done, exactly how we've got ourselves here. And part of me wants to say who's at fault, but there's people that I converse with and says, well, everyone's at fault. Well, to some extent that's true, but most people live in a bubble and they do not have access or the ability to access the key information that would enlighten them or would have enlightened them to begin with. But there are people in our world who have the power, the education, and the access to the information that would have, so that they knew much of this or all of it long ago, decades ago. And they continued to lead us down the wrong path. So, do you say, oh, that's human nature? And as astrologers, I want to say, well, who's leading people who like to be in control, people who like power? Now, in along our history, we've had a tendency to want to look up to leaders and kind of either worship them, which is definitely the wrong thing to do, or to at least admire them and believe that they have our best interest at heart. And maybe a few have, but those are the ones, let me see, those are the ones that usually get shot and killed or, come to a strange end. But yeah, there were people who knew a lot of this, and still we did not change course. We continued with business as usual. But it is difficult, I will have to say, to grasp the realities of the condition of our species. It's true, and this is in the book. Any species will use whatever means necessary within its habitat to flourish and prosper. Any animal will do that. And what are we? We are animals. We are not separate from the rest of Earth. We are not. We are animals, and we may have bigger brains, and we may have some reasoning ability and some logic, but we have not been able to foresee well enough what our greed and power mongering and our want for luxury and convenience would lead to. And it is not pretty. Okay, I'm going to read some more. Okay, let's see. As these points begin to indicate, in order really to understand our future, we need a clear-headed ecological interpretation of history, because the pressure of our numbers and technology upon manifestly limited resources has already put out of reach the previously acceptable solutions to many of our problems. there remains steadfast resistance to admitting this, but facts are not repealed by refusal to face them. On the other hand, even the alarmists who have been warning of grave perils besetting mankind have not fathomed our present predicament. I speak of predicament, not crisis, because I refer to conditions that are not of recent origin and will not soon abate. Okay, here's another few parts. Let's see. I know I'm going to get some pushback on this one, but when people say this, they're not meaning we're supposed to go out there and kill off a bunch of people. They're stating a reality, a fact of numbers, but not what to do about it, okay? Except, better birth control and a cultural shift away from, hey, when are you going to have a family? When are you going to get married? When are you going to have a baby? How many kids are you going to have? We need to shift the cultural expectation away from this. We think everybody wants and needs to have a family. Well, guess what? A family can consist of many variations. Doesn't have to be blood. People don't have to definitely have children. Okay, let me read this. Nature is going to require reduction of human dominance over the world ecosystem. The changes this will entail are so revolutionary that we will be almost overwhelmingly tempted instead to prolong and augment our dominance at all costs. And as we shall see, the cost will be prodigious. We are likely to do many things that will make a bad situation worse, like build out a crapload of renewables requiring neodymium, lithium, cobalt, all that stuff. Iron ore. We are likely to do many things that will make a bad situation worse. It is hoped that the kind of enlightenment offered in this book may help curtail such tendencies. Well, it didn't. Okay. Now, this book has a copyright, which is very interesting. 1980. Okay. Even then, this individual, he's made additions to this book, I believe, since then. 82 seems updates have been added. And then down here it says William Robert Catton, 1926. That must be, I don't know if that's when he was born. Overshoot, the Ecological Basis of Revolutionary Change. Okay, that's the name of the book. Okay, now there's very important. Here's another part. The purpose of this book, therefore, is to illuminate the nature and causes of the human predicament so as to make possible some mitigation of its social, emotional, and moral effects. To mitigate the effects of post-exuberant pressures, we must recognize their deepest roots. We must learn to relate personally to what may be called the ecological facts of life. We must see that those facts are affecting our lives far more importantly and permanently than the events that make headlines. To understand the human predicament now requires a truly ecological perspective. And we don't have that. We don't. We say, oh, we care about the environment. Well, the whole idea of caring about the environment is kind of passé at this point because people just think of it as something over there. Another issue like all other issues. Sorry, but no, it's not an issue like other issues. It is the basis of life on this planet. The biosphere is a thin film having to do with our atmosphere, our soils, our water, and it's all going to shit. We need to wake up. and I kind of hate to use that word anymore, wake up, because it's been usurped by other factions. And that's another point. I want to bring up the idea of factions. I might have mentioned this before. There are many factions within any one particular concern that we are dealing with in this day and age. So keep that in mind when you hear something from somebody like, somebody recently told me, "Oh, I don't want to hear news from those liberals." Okay. Yes, liberals are very into the whole, we got to do something about climate change. Okay. That's all well and good. But what they want to do is destroy habitat, just like the industrialists did. Because that's what it's about. It's about keeping industrial civilization up and running full force with growing GDP, etc. That is not going to keep us alive. Is there any solution? Well, at this point, when he wrote this book, he was really hoping there was, because he thought it would make a difference. But it didn't. At this point, from what I've been reading and what I've seen from other climate scientists, look up Andrew Glickson. He wrote The Event Horizon. He says we're already at 2C. That is really bad news, folks. Remember, there are feedback loops. There are triggers that have already been tripped. We can't go back. And there's heating in the pipeline for at least 20 to 30 years that we can't stop because it's already there. It's a delay in the effects of CO2. It takes that long for the effects to come through. So the CO2 that's in the air has already done its damage for the next 20, 30 years. Remember, it's about what's in the atmosphere already. That's different than emissions. Concentration of CO2 is different from emissions. Emissions is what we're doing now. Concentration is what's already there. You can't get rid of that. There's no way. They keep talking about making machines to suck it up. Not happening. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. Let me find another part here. There's a couple of really good points. Okay. This is from the chapter, The Processes That Matter. When human history did not work out according to high hopes engendered by the age of exuberance, which I didn't cover, but you'll get the drift, we began in the post-exuberant world to suffer from the illusion that we could retrieve the good old days by hating someone for stealing them from us. Stealing the good old days from us. Examples abound. People to be hated have ranged from communists to capitalists. Capitalism. From whites to blacks, from true believers, wrong brand, to revisionists. Parties, nationalities, races, classes, and faiths have all served as targets for frustration-bred hatred. Weimar Germany became the genocidal Third Reich of Adolf Hitler because there were desperate or humiliated crowds willing to embrace the doctrine that non-Aryans were the source of their nation's woes. Does that sound like a little bit of what's going on these days? When something goes wrong within the ecosphere, people don't understand that it's us using up and messing up the ecosphere. They want to blame somebody. Let's see what else we can come up with. Let me look back here. They have a list of words and terms and age of exuberance. The centuries of growth and progress that followed the sudden enlargement of habitat available to Europeans as a result of voyages of discovery, Columbus and all that. A period of expansion when a species takes exuberant advantage of the abundant opportunities in an eminently suitable but previously inaccessible habitat. And there's a section in here that talks about Europe had become quite crowded and had used up a decent amount of good soils, etc. And so when they found that there was this whole great big, well, they didn't know how big it was, but continent, they're just like, wow, we can go there, we can spread out, we got more resources to use, more soil, we can grow again. We got abundance of resources. We don't have to be limited anymore. And they loved it. And that was the Europeans that came here. Little did they want to admit that there were people already here using those resources, but using them in a much more rather, maybe not perfectly so, but a much more rather prudent way. Okay? Native Americans, what was that they had? They believed, let's see. Oh, we have to keep in mind that it's important for us to not forget at least 7 generations after us still need to have available the resources that we're using now. So we can't overuse them. And we can't use them for stupid stuff. We can't use them for luxury. We can't use them for convenience. We have to have our glass partway full, not running over. Cup runneth over. Really? Wasting all that my cup runneth over? Yeah. Forget about the people that come after me, man. I don't care. I want to be comfortable. I want to have fun. I want to have fun on a mass scale. I want to go to football games and big stadiums sucking up a lot of energy. And I want to take my kids to Disneyland. And oh, wow. Yeah. So, Pluto and Capricorn, it ended more or less England's hierarchical power, shifted it to the United States eventually over time. That was our chart, Pluto and Capricorn. Now, chickens are coming home to roost. Yeah, I know people got really mad when that minister said that, when Obama was in. But, karma. It's a bee. Now, there's more in this book that is eye-opening if you've not been learning anything about this. If you've only gotten snippets here and there from the news, or somebody carried on a little bit to you, or if you saw a couple of headlines, you are not grasping this on the deepest levels. So now, other issues that we've dealt with also recently. Neptune and Pisces. Neptune in Pisces is the 3rd house of the United States. I've done some little research. I'm not going to get that out now, but for instance, during the lead up to the Civil War, it was called yellow journalism. And that was a lot of disinformation that was spread. And that's one of the ways that the Civil War came about. And that's the focus of one of my videos coming up. I need more work on it. I don't know why. I guess it's the Pisces thing. I don't know. I still haven't done it yet. But try getting this book, Overshoot. And if you want, try getting Glickson's book, Andrew Glickson, paleoclimatologist. And he is the one saying that we're already at 2 degrees C. And that is all I have today, I guess. So I didn't want to make it too long. But anyway, yeah, this is my office, actually. And the blackboard, I did that like almost 2 years ago. We did plaster in this room. And so that's not really smooth. It works sort of, but to be better, I've got to sand it down, and then it'll be really cool because I like standing up there and making my charts, and putting my planets in there, and I've had the United States chart up there and studied it and different things, and it's pretty nifty. But I have more work to do in here. My brother came up with, from my dad's house, the bridle that I used to use on my Welsh pony, April. I couldn't believe. He came to my house one day and he says, "Does this look familiar?" I'm like, "Oh my God." So I'm cleaning that up with some Castile soap, putting some saddle soap on it, and it'll be hanging in here. The other side of the wall is green, so I have two colors in here. But yeah, I got some work to do in here yet. And this is a radio, yeah, that my sister gave me. She kind of made me take it. But hey, if things go wrong down the road, at least I have a radio. If there's any radio stations out there still pumping out information or connection. I know. See, that's the one thing that's going to really, really hurt down the road. You want to think about that. Whether or not, we'll have internet and the kind of connections that we've been making with people who are like-minded, that's going to be difficult. So what's really important, again, I'm going to say, is to make bridges to the people near you and dear to you. It might be really difficult because they're probably not in your space at all. But the more you work calmly and sincerely on connecting and helping people to understand things, don't shove it down the throat. You can't do that. It doesn't work. And sometimes just little bits here and there. And as things develop or devolve, people may come to terms with some of what you've been saying. And then you can go from there. Okay? As time goes on and certain events occur. Speaking of events, I can't imagine that a war between the United States and Russia could end well. But that's for another day. I know, I said I was going to stop. Okay. Over now. The end. Take care, folks. Bye-bye. Astrologer, Climate Witness, signing out.